Welcome to Steve Sanders Massacres the Movies. I'm Steve Sanders. This is Snickers. And today's my 4th of July spectacular. And we're looking at the greatest film ever to cover about the 4th of July. Re-elected. About undead presidents on the 4th of July coming back to kill people. I know we've seen it before, but have we ever seen it with... Actually, we've never seen it before because no one had the guts to make this film before. Because it is so great. No one had the guts to make a film about zombie presidents before on the 4th of July before Re-elected came out. So I will jump into this movie. Because once again, this is Steve Sanders Massacres the Movie, and I'm Steve Sanders. And it starts out with a lady driving in the woods. As any great film should start out. And then she gets massacred by a president who rips her arm off after her car breaks down. We don't get to see the president, but we assume it is a president, as they are wearing a wig. And only presidents and old ladies wear wigs. Or old lady presidents like Donald Trump. Yeah, that'll cost me views. Once again, this is Steve Sanders Massacres the Movie. I'm Steve Sanders. Then we go to a few hours earlier, where we see our hero, Nate, setting up his party for the 4th of July with a margarita station, a guac station, a fried ice cream station, a big sign saying USA, and his guests arriving, including his girlfriend, his sister, his half-sister, and his dumb friend Marcus, who all vow to drink and get college drunk at this party, including when their friend Evan shows up, who doesn't really like Nate, but brings a bottle of liquor. And then they drink until one of them confronts Nate about his alcoholism. Well, they confront him about his over-drinking, not his alcoholism, but I'm sure he's an alcoholic too. As most people who overdrink are alcoholics. Or they're just like me, and they just like to get drunk on occasion. Like every day. Once again, this is Steve Sanders Massacres the Movies. I'm Steve Sanders. So then the lights go out as Evan goes upstairs with Angela, Nate's half-sister, and tries to do her. And Evan and Nate and Marcus go downstairs to turn the lights back on. And who should show up but George Washington Zombie to kill Mary. As Nate and Marcus arrive back on the first floor to debate Marcus's sugar situation. And Evan and Angela continue to try to, Evan continues to try to fuck Angela, though there is audible screaming in the background, which always makes for a sexy situation. Whenever you can get lots of terrified screams in the background, that just always turns you on. I know it does. Once again, this is Steve Sanders Massacres the Movie. I'm Steve Sanders. Mary, Nate's girlfriend, runs George Washington out of there, comes back in and throws up, and they decide to go into the woods together. Nate, Evan, and Angela, where they run into Abe Lincoln and Andrew Jackson, Abe Lincoln then kills Evan in front of Angela. Andrew Jackson fires on Nate with his musket, which if you knew much about Andrew Jackson, you know he likes his muskets. Only for Angela and Nate to run into each other again, to be lost in the woods. And for Abe Lincoln to say four score a lot. Because 4 scores was all Abe Lincoln ever had in his life. Once again, this is Steve Sanders Massacres the Movie. I'm Steve Sanders. Now, Mary and Marcus get a plan to run away in a car together, but Marcus gets eaten by Washington. Mary escapes in the car, only for Nate and Angela to somehow make it back to the cabin, and Nate to realize he cannot kill these undead presidents because they are his favorite presidents. So Angela takes out Jackson, only to find her father's notes on the things that brought them to life. So she tries to turn them back to dead creatures, only for it to bring Jackson back to life, and for her to be captured by Lincoln, Washington, and Jackson. And Nate then realizes he has to do something. Once again, this is Steve Sanders Massacres the Movies. I'm Steve Sanders. And so Nate goes out with his best weapons equipped, which has nothing in them to work. No bullets in a gun, no gas in a chainsaw, no nothing. But it does face Lincoln inside the cabin with a knife, which we don't get to see. Jackson gets hit with a firework, which we don't get to see him explode. And Washington gets hit with the back of a flagpole. Because flagpoles are always good weapons, but you're supposed to impale people on them. Mary then dies, thanks to Washington. But Nate and Angela manage to read the Declaration of Independence with enough Americana to suck Washington back into hell. Because I'm sure that's where Washington went. Only he does take Nate's leg with him. Only for us to realize the next day that Nate does not have good insurance. And it is going to cost him over $50,000 to have his leg reattached. Actually, probably over $200,000, not counting the $10,000 ambulance ride. And that is the end of the movie. Once again, this is Steve Sanders Massacres the Movie, and I'm Steve Sanders. And now here's a word from our sponsor. Need a companion animal who will ignore you, show you no affection, and absolutely not care at all that you exist? Go with cats. They'll completely ignore you. Just sit behind you and just not know what's going on. They'll scratch you up, bite you, and try to eat your body as you're alive. Look at cats. They come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and colors. And don't know that you exist, but demand your attention constantly. Cats!